CNN. The country that America bombed into rubble was rebuilding itself in real time, using the wreckage of the global shipping system as a toll booth. The trap wasn't set after the war started. The trap was the war. Now look at where we are today. Iran has asked for major sanctions relief and unfreezing of assets north of $20 billion. CNN. Iran, which was bombed. Iran, which lost its supreme leader. Iran, which had its nuclear sites destroyed. Iran is dictating the terms. And the numbers keep climbing. Oil and gas accounts for 80% of Iranian government export earnings and 23.7% of GDP. Council on Foreign Relations, which means Iran has an existential incentive to extract maximum value from every hour that the strait remains under its influence. Every day of delay is a negotiating chip. Every ship that can't move is leverage. Every barrel of oil that can't reach Asia is a reminder to the world, to China, to India, to Europe, to every economy that runs on energy, that Iran is not the supplicant in this negotiation. More than 90% of Iran's $109.7 billion in annual seaborne trade transits through the Strait of Hormuz. CNBC. Yes, Iran is hurting, too. Yes, the U.S. blockade, which estimates suggest could cost Iran or $13 billion a month in losses, Council on Foreign Relations, is painful. Iran's people are suffering, but Iran's government made a calculation that its enemies did not. It calculated that the world's need for that strait to reopen was greater than Washington's appetite for a prolonged standoff. It calculated that Trump is facing midterm elections where the Republican Party's grip on congressional power is looking looser by the day as the Iran war heats up inflation. Council on Foreign Relations, Iran is playing for time. And time, in this situation, flows in one direction only. When Iran's foreign minister announced the strait was fully open on April 17, U.S. crude oil plunged 12% in a single day, the largest single-day oil price drop since the war began. European business magazine, markets erupted in celebration. The S&P 500 hit all-time highs. Investors around the world exhaled. And then, within hours, the celebration collapsed. Iran reimposed its blockade, blaming breaches of trust by the United States, with IRGC gunboats firing on tankers near the strait. CNN. The market had priced in a resolution. Iran snatched it back. And in doing so, it demonstrated something that no military operation could ever demonstrate, that it controls the psychology of the global economy as surely as it controls those 21 miles of water. Listen very carefully, because what just happened in the Strait of Hormuz is not what anyone in Washington is telling you. And if you don't understand what actually happened, not the headline, not the press release, not the victory lap, then you will not understand why the most powerful military in human history just walked straight into a trap that a country with a degraded navy, shattered air defenses, and a dead supreme leader built with nothing but patience and 21 miles of water. The Strait of Hormuz is only 21 miles wide at its narrowest point. Wikipedia, 21 miles. That's roughly the distance from one end of a mid-sized city to the other. And yet, through those 21 miles, around 20 million barrels of oil pass every single day, roughly 20% of global seaborne oil trade. Wikipedia. That is not a shipping lane. That is a financial artery. That is the heartbeat of the global economy. And Iran just figured out, in the middle of a war it was supposedly losing, that it didn't need nuclear weapons. It didn't need intercontinental missiles. It didn't even need to win. It just needed to sit on that artery and squeeze. What this war has done is handed Iran a weapon that is far more usable than nuclear weapons. The Strait of Hormuz, choking off global supplies. CNN. That is not my analysis. That is the assessment of people who have spent careers studying American foreign policy. And the reason this matters, the reason you need to sit with that sentence and really feel its weight, is because the entire premise of this conflict, from the very beginning, was that the United States and Israel held all the cards. Superior technology, superior military, the ability to bomb Iran back to the Stone Age if they chose to, and they did choose to. On February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel initiated coordinated airstrikes on Iran under Operation Epic Fury, targeting military facilities, nuclear sites, and leadership, resulting in the death of Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. Wikipedia, the Supreme Leader is dead. The nuclear sites were hit. The mission, by every measure the planners designed, was a success, and Iran is winning. How is that possible? How does a country absorb that scale of destruction and come out holding more leverage than it had before the first bomb fell? The answer is geography. The answer is that for 40 years, American strategists looked at the Strait of Hormuz and saw a threat. Iran could close it. Iran could disrupt global oil. Iran had leverage over the world economy. And so, for 40 years, successive administrations tiptoed around Tehran, negotiated, sanctioned, negotiated again, because closing Hormuz was the thing that must never happen. The entire architecture of American Middle East policy was built around that fear. And then, and here is where it gets extraordinary, the Trump administration decided the way to neutralize that fear was to go to war, to blow up the fear itself, to say, We are not afraid of you anymore? The 2026 Iran war, including the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, has led to what the International Energy Agency has characterized as the largest supply disruption in the history of the global oil market. Wikipedia, larger than the 1973 oil embargo, larger than the Gulf War, larger than anything that has come before. Following the closure of the Strait of Hormuz on March 4, 2026, Brent crude surged past $120 per barrel, and oil production from Kuwait, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE collectively dropped by at least 10 million barrels per day. Wikipedia, 10 million barrels a day gone. The global economy didn't just get hurt, it got restructured overnight. And then something remarkable happened. Something that nobody who designed this war appears to have planned for. Iran, a country whose military had been shattered, whose leader had been killed, whose nuclear infrastructure had been targeted. Iran discovered that it didn't need any of those things to win. Iran has also found, as a result of the US and Israeli-launched war, that it has power over the world economy by controlling the Strait of Hormuz. CNN. It found a weapon more powerful than anything it had built in the previous 4 decades of trying. And it found it because America handed it to them. Here is what the deal actually revealed. During the ceasefire, Iran began controlling traffic through the strait and charging tolls of over 1 million per ship. Wikipedia, there are 1 million per ship. And there are, on a normal day, roughly 100 or more ships transiting that passage. If it's 2 million per vessel, and you multiply that times 100 or more ships a day, that is a very substantial amount of hard currency enabling Iran to repair the extraordinary damage done to their military. The critical detail is buried in the announcement. Despite Iran reopening the strait, Trump confirmed the US blockade on Iran would remain in place until a full deal is completed. European Business Magazine. The strait is conditionally open. The war is not over. And those two facts cannot coexist indefinitely without one side blinking. The question of which side blinks first is the question that will define the next decade of geopolitics. The war has caused a systemic collapse of the Gulf Cooperation Council economic model. Wikipedia, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, American allies, countries that trusted Washington's security guarantees are watching their export arteries bleed. Around 70% of Gulf states' food imports pass through the Strait of Hormuz. Wikipedia. This is not an energy crisis. This is a food crisis. This is a water crisis. Iranian strikes on desalination plants, the source of 99% of drinking water in Kuwait and Qatar, Wikipedia, turned a geopolitical standoff into a humanitarian emergency for America's closest partners in the region. The International Monetary Fund cut its global growth forecast for 2026 while warning the world was drifting toward an adverse scenario where oil prices could stay around 100 per barrel. CNBC. Every percentage point of global growth that disappears is millions of people pushed into poverty. Every dollar that oil climbs is a tax on every economy on Earth that didn't vote for this war, didn't want this war, and has no say in how it ends. The billions lost are not abstractions. They are factories that don't open. They are supply chains that don't move. They are farmers who can't afford fuel, families who can't afford food, governments that can't afford stability. What Trump walked into was not a military confrontation. It was a leverage inversion. For decades, America's strength came from being the indispensable power, the guarantor of the global order, the protector of free navigation, the force that kept the arteries open. The moment America went to war in the Persian Gulf, it ceased to be the protector of that system and became a combatant within it. And Iran, broke, bombed, leaderless, looked at that transformation and saw its opportunity. You don't have to beat the most powerful military in the world. You just have to make the cost of victory unacceptable to the voters who will decide the next election. However the war ultimately ends, Trump will want to declare the outcome is better than what Obama achieved without going to war. CNN. That is the political imperative driving American decision-making right now, not strategy, not long-term security architecture, not the interests of the Gulf states bleeding out in the heat. The imperative is a press conference. The imperative is a comparison to a predecessor, and Iran knows this. Tehran has read the American political calendar as carefully as any general has ever read a battlefield map, and what they see is a clock ticking down to midterms, a president who needs a win, and a strait worth 20% of global oil that only they can fully reopen. The trap was elegant because it was invisible. It looked like defeat, the dead supreme leader, the bombed nuclear sites, the shattered military. But every element of apparent defeat was simultaneously a step toward a position of extraordinary leverage. The world needed Hormuz open before the war. It needs it open more desperately now. And the only party with the ability to open it permanently, safely, completely, is the same party that everyone assumed had just lost.